Today on a powerful, all-new Dr. Phil exclusive.
Take me through the moment that you learned what had happened. Did your husband discover the children?
They shine a little brighter.
He did. He got in the vehicle and he drove a few blocks away, and then he realized he pulled over and was screaming. He was screaming in the phone.
1-year-old twins died after their father left them in a hot car, apparently by accident.
Why do they go so soon? The ones who so beautiful.
We are both living in our own personal hell.
Juan Rodriguez could not hide his grief as he was charged with the deaths of his infant son and daughter.
I have been so angry. I just couldn't understand how it happened.
Has he asked you for your forgiveness?
Plus,
Our son called us and he said, "Mom, we can't find Anaya." Immediately, Walt and I knew that something was wrong.
Breaking news of an arrest in connection with Anaya Blanchard's disappearance. She is the stepdaughter of UFC heavyweight Walt Harris.
There was a hearing over the weekend. Can you tell us what happened?
As a father, that was one of the hardest moments of my life, to look at that man and contain myself.
Do you believe that he acted alone, or do you think others are involved?
Oh no, I totally believe that there were other people involved.
If she's being held captive right now, what do you say to her?
Anaya, I want you to be the strong girl that you are, because we are working hard to get to you.
On October 23rd, 19-year-old Anaya Haley Blanchard called her roommate and told her she was on the way home. She never showed up and has not been heard from since. 17 days later, a man out on bond charged with a previous attempted murder was arrested and charged in Anaya's disappearance.
Tonight, police in Auburn, Alabama say there's evidence that a missing college student is a victim of foul play. 19-year-old Anaya Haley Blanchard disappeared last week. She's the stepdaughter of a UFC fighter.
The last glimpse of her was on surveillance video walking into an Auburn, Alabama store.
Her car was found at a Montgomery apartment complex 2 days after Anaya was last seen.
But it's the forensic evidence found inside the car that has investigators worried.
Auburn police now tell us they've identified the person of interest in the case.
There's currently a manhunt going on right now to track him down. There's a warrant out for the arrest of 30-year-old Ibrahim Yazid of Montgomery.
Yazid is currently out on bond for charges of kidnapping and attempted murder from a previous case in another jurisdiction. He should be considered dangerous and would be potentially armed.
We have some breaking news from Florida. An arrest has been made in connection to Anaya Blanchard's disappearance 2 weeks ago. 30-year-old Ibrahim Yazid was arrested overnight in Florida on the charge of kidnapping in the first degree.
According to investigators, Yazid was at the same convenience store where Anaya Blanchard was last seen. They tell us they believe Ibrahim Yazid took Anaya against her will.
Today, her parents, UFC fighter Walt Harris and his wife Angela, reveal exclusive information that they hope might lead to her safe return. I'm so glad to talk to you, but so terribly sorry for the circumstances. I'm wanting to really put a bright light on over this story in hopes that we can find something, and that's your goal as well, right?
Yes, sir.
How did you first find out that your daughter Anaya was missing?
About 11 a.m. on October 23rd, our 20-year-old son Elijah called us and he said, "Mom, we can't find Anaya." He said, "She didn't come home." Her roommate called me and said that she never came home, and immediately Walt and I knew at that second that something was wrong, because that's not Anaya. Even if she would have stayed out at a friend's house or something, she would come home. She had things to do the next morning. She has a job and kids that she has to take to school and actually go to school, and she has never not come home.
The first clue that you got was she was spotted on surveillance footage. And where was this surveillance camera, and what was she doing? Why was she on that camera?
She actually was at a Chevron just right down the street from her apartment, and she looked like she was ready to go home. Her brother told us her phone was dying, and she didn't buy anything else in the store, and we know if she would have been planning on staying out, she would have bought a charger So we know our child. We know she likes to snack before going to bed. So that was just kind of typical for her to kind of stop at the store, get some chips, and we feel like her plan was to go home.
Now, there was another man also spotted in that convenience store footage, and you now know that this was Ibrahim Yazid. Tell me what you know about him and his involvement in this as far as the camera reveals.
I mean, we just saw the footage of him being in the store.
Police said that he was out on $60,000 bond at the time of his arrest, and they believe that he kidnapped your daughter, correct?
Which is the part I can't fathom. I just don't understand how you could be walking around amongst people free.
Well, it's just outrageous. I mean, it just seems outrageous. And that was not the only charge that he's had, correct?
No, sir, there's multiple.
He's got an extensive rap sheet.
A witness has come forward saying that they witnessed this Yazid shoving your daughter into a car against her will. Was it her car?
As far as we've been told, that it was her car.
Where was Anaya's car discovered?
In Montgomery, at an apartment complex.
And how far away is that from the Chevron store and therefore her apartment?
50 miles.
What was the significance of that apartment complex? Do you know who lived there?
No, we don't. We haven't gotten really any information. You had to know where that was in order to put that car there. So whoever took her car there knew where they were going, for sure.
I went there. I went to the apartment complex. I had to stand in a spot where Anaya's car was parked. I just had to do that. And it's not a place anybody would want to be.
Does he live 50 miles away? Was the car found near where his residence is?
His residence is in Montgomery.
It's in Montgomery. I don't know exactly where his residence is.
So the car was found where the town where he lives. So he
Yes, it was found in Montgomery. He's from there. So that we do know. In relation to where he actually lives, I don't know.
There was a hearing over the weekend, which is rare because it was on a Sunday, and they're usually public, but the media was not allowed in, so it was private. Were you there, and can you tell us what happened?
Yazid stood in front of the judge, and, you know, he was read his charges, and, you know, it was just him trying to be pitiful to gain a plea from the judge, but it was tough to sit in there. As a father, that was one of the hardest moments of my life, to look at that man, you know, and contain myself. You know, to be quite frank with you, Dr. Phil, that was probably the hardest thing I've done. And I've been through a lot of things in my life, but that was tough.
Did he reveal anything that can be built on, any string that can be pulled, anything that gives any idea about what's going on?
He didn't. And that's the frustrating part. He hasn't spoken to this point, and that's the part, I think, for both of us that's really, really frustrating.
It was later revealed in an affidavit that they found enough blood in her car to indicate a possibly life-threatening injury. I know that had to be just terrible and horrific for you to hear that information. What effect did it have for you to learn that?
That's very difficult to hear. It was very difficult to hear, to know that my child has been hurt in some way. But we're trying to keep the hope that even though we know she had an injury, that she is still alive. We have got to keep believing that, and until we know otherwise, we are going to keep believing that she is still alive, and we are going to keep looking for her.
Coming up.
Do you believe that he acted alone, or do you think others are involved?
Oh no, I totally believe that there were other people involved.
We now return to a Dr. Phil exclusive.
Where do you think she is? And has he given any clues, anything at all that leads you to have some idea of where you think she might be?
We're hoping that somebody has her and they're just holding her. Right now, that's just what we're holding on to. That's what we have to hold on to, that he's somebody, now that he's been arrested, that we know he has people that he runs with, you know, hopefully that they have Anaya and she's okay.
Do you believe that he acted alone, or do you think others are involved?
Oh, no, I totally believe that there were other people involved, multiple people involved.
Has anyone identified a potential motive, or was this just a random act where she was in the wrong place at the wrong time?
We think wrong place at the wrong time, but there has to be a motive, and that is yet to be discovered.
Walt, do you believe that this is a crime of opportunity? I mean, your daughter, Angela, y'all's daughter is just a stunningly beautiful young woman, and you know, she's vibrant and alive and beautiful. And is it possible that, you know, she just walked in where he was, and he just, because he was there and she was there, that he just reacted impulsively and took her at that point?
I believe that it could be either or. I feel like it could be what you're describing, but I also have some feelings that I've felt since day one that it was a setup.
There's a lot of things that don't make sense to us, as it would be just a random thing. It seems like it was actually set up and it was something that was planned.
Let's talk about that, because how do you think it might have been set up if it was a setup? Because no one could have known that she was going to stop in there to grab a snack at that time of night. So tell me how the setup would have worked here.
Personally, I feel like it was somebody that, if it was a setup, that's somebody that knew Anaya and that knew her well.
That gave him the opportunity to get that close to her.
And it's someone that would be running with those type of people.
Your theory is not that someone that knew her, a friend or someone, set her up.
I have those thoughts. I still do. I have feelings that there may be somebody that she knows that has set her up. I have things something that we can't really discuss, but there's something that we know that they are helping a lead that they're working on to try to help figure that part out. That
there might be somebody from her world, not his world, that might have bridged these two worlds together.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Exactly.
All right. And has he been appointed a public defender?
Yes.
And the reason I ask, Walt and Angela, is I have a certain expertise in deception detection and getting to the truth. I've spent a lot of time in the litigation arena, and I would give anything to have the opportunity to sit down and talk to this person and find out where Anaya is, if he knows. This may be the best thing he could possibly do right now, is to give up what he knows before it's too late. If she's being held captive right now and she's listening to you, Walt, what do you say to her?
I love you, baby girl. We're looking for you. We're doing everything that we can, and we're gonna get you. I promise. I won't stop until we do. We love you.
Angela?
Just Anaya, you know Mommy loves you. You're my heart. And I want you to be the strong girl that you are. Just hold on. Be strong. Be tough. Be smart. And that because we are working hard to get to you. And it's going to be soon. I promise. Mommy loves you.
And Anaya, let me add, your parents here are dedicated and devoted, and you are their #1 priority. And I am partnering with them. And we're going to do everything we can to find you. And there's nothing that I won't do to help them. And they're not going to stop until they find you. So please know, nobody's moving on. Everything is about you at this point. And we're going to continue until we find the answers here, until we find you.
Thank you so much, Dr.
All right.
Okay.
God bless both of you, and you're in our prayers. If you know anything at all about the whereabouts of Anaya Haley Blanchard, please come forward. However insignificant you might think the tip is, you never know. Call Crime Stoppers, the number on the screen right now. Coming up, in an exclusive interview, we hear from the grief-stricken wife of the man who left his twins in the backseat of a hot car for 8 hours.
I heard him say that they were gone, and I didn't believe it. I just kept saying, "You're kidding, you're joking."
Sometimes heaven needs them back.
We now return to a Dr. Phil exclusive.
A New York father faces charges of second-degree manslaughter, criminally negligent homicide, and endangering the welfare of a child after his baby twins died from being left in a hot car for hours this summer. On July 26, military veteran Juan Rodriguez was supposed to drop his twins, a baby girl named Luna and a boy named Phoenix, off at their daycare on his way to work. He dropped his 4-year-old child first before driving to the hospital where he was employed as a social worker, leaving his twins still strapped in their car seats. He had to take a new route to work due to construction, and somehow, he says he simply forgot they were still in the car. He clocked in for his shift. The children never made it out of the back seat alive. "I blanked out," Rodriguez told police. "My babies are dead. I killed my babies."
It was Friday last week, a sweltering day. The Iraq War veteran from Rockland County had driven to work at the Bronx VA hospital. When he returned to his parked car some 8 hours later,
the frantic father pulls over and calls 911, but his 1-year-old daughter and her twin brother were already dead.
39-year-old Rodriguez says he forgot to drop them at a New York City daycare.
The father of twins, who says he forgot his babies inside a hot car, sobbed throughout his court appearance today.
Juan Rodriguez could not hide his grief as he was charged with the deaths of his infant son and daughter.
Here in New York City, an Iraq War veteran is free on bond tonight. He pleaded not guilty to manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide in the deaths of his year-old twins.
Supporters yelled, "I love you," as Rodriguez hugged his wife outside of Bronx criminal court. His lawyer says Rodriguez is on suicide watch.
Relatives carried into the Sinatra Memorial Home in Yonkers this pair of large, framed photos of the twins who never made it to their second birthdays.
Today, in an exclusive interview, Juan's wife, Marissa Rodriguez, the mother of these two precious twins, speaks out for the very first time about her unthinkable loss. If you are a parent, you do not want to miss this. I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I so appreciate you using your life in this circumstance to save lives, which is exactly what you're doing. Well, so people know, can you tell me in your own words exactly what happened from your point of view?
Like any other morning in general, we wake up about 5, 6 a.m. and get the children together, get their clothes on, feed them, all 3 small ones, put them in their car seats. Our 4-year-old, was able to get in his car seat. I know Juan strapped him in, and I strapped the babies in. I got them ready to go. And, that was the last time that I saw them.
How did you send them off each morning? What did you say to Phoenix? What did you say to Luna? Did you have a certain way you sent them off?
Of course, I kissed them. We played music in the morning. They were both dancers. They loved to dance. And I couldn't wait to tell Luna especially that she danced before she walked. She would just sit on the floor and rock back and forth. It would be a commercial on. It wouldn't even be real music. And they just danced to everything. So, we would often play music in the morning, or I would sing to them, start singing ABCs even at 1 to try to get them used to hearing my voice and recognizing and teaching them.
Luna. Hey, Stinky.
They were in car seats facing backwards,
Correct.
Right? Okay.
The 3 car seats in the back of the car, our 4-year-old in the middle and the twins on either side. And he drives to a local daycare near our home, which is only about 15 minutes away, to drop our 4-year-old off. And then when he gets to the Yonkers location, which is probably another 45 minutes away, that would be generally where he drops the twins off. And we've been doing this for over a year, so
Do they ever stay awake that whole time?
No,
so they're
for
silent.
a car ride like that, after waking them up early, giving them a bottle, they were pacified. They were always happy and happy to be asleep.
And when he got to where he was going, did something happen out of the ordinary on that end? Was there construction? Did he make an extra stop? What happened that disrupted his normal routine?
I can't say there was anything particularly different that day. I mean, he may say something different, but I know the daycare is amazing. They had 2 locations though, and they had recently moved to a location that was a little bit further north. So for the 2 months prior, there were a few weeks that my husband was away on military duty and I was taking them, and even something in my mind triggered, okay, we have to get off at this exit. When you go to one place often enough, you do get into a routine. And I wouldn't say it was that particular day that there was anything different.
And so you talked to him throughout the day?
Absolutely, several times.
In retrospect, did you hear anything in his voice that, in retrospect, he was uneasy about, or was he totally oblivious?
To me, he was totally oblivious of any type of change. I mean, we are the parents of 5 children, so every day we're tired. He worked very late the night before, and that morning it was, thank God it's Friday. We were just looking forward to the weekend and taking the babies to the beach for the first time. We were looking forward to having a good weekend. No expectation whatsoever in my mind that there was any difference of what our normal day was. Could I say he was tired? Absolutely. That's just how our everyday life seemed to be. So I don't think there was anything that triggered any type of caution or any type of reason for me to be alarmed.
Take me through the moment that you learned what had happened.
Coming up.
He was screaming in the phone. I could tell through what he was saying and how he was saying it.
Sometimes heaven needs them back.
We now return to a Dr. Phil exclusive.
Take me through the moment that you learned what had happened. How did you learn, and what did they tell you?
My husband called me. I was working. The first call was at about 4 or so, and he told me, all right, it's your turn to pick up the kids. He was going to a military event, and he generally brought the kids to daycare, but we switched off who picked them up. So I said, no problem, I'll pick them up. I was still working, for another hour at least. And I got on the phone with a client, and he called my cell phone back again, and I kind of just ignored it because I was working. And I realized he left me a voicemail, which he doesn't normally do. And then he called again, and I said, okay, it's important. I got off the phone, and I heard him say that they were gone. And I didn't believe it. I just kept saying, you're kidding, you're joking. I ran out of my job. I bumped into some coworkers that didn't quite understand what I was going through, and I just ran to my car. I got in my vehicle. I drove to where he said he was, and the police did not allow me to see the children. Personally, I do think I would have liked to see them. I know that that's not something that they wanted me to see, but I compare it to, if a mom has a stillbirth, she still gets to hold their kid, her child. And I would have liked to see them. I would have liked to be there. I didn't see them for another week until they were in their caskets.
What did he say to you that it sunk in that this was reality, this had really happened?
He was screaming. He was screaming in the phone. I could tell through what he was saying and how he was saying it.
Did he discover the children?
He did.
When he just went back to the car to get in and put things in the car?
He didn't realize at first. He got in the vehicle. He drove maybe about a few blocks away, and then he realized when he put his hand on the back seat of the passenger seat, the back of the passenger seat.
Like this. That was his first realization that,
Correct.
my God, my children are in
He
the
pulled
car.
over and was screaming.
And did he call?
He called me, and he called 911.
Right.
And I know that they came immediately, and when I got there, I saw an ambulance pulling away, and I didn't want to believe it. I kept just imagining that they were going to be okay, or that they were in the ambulance, but they were telling me I needed to go to the precinct instead of saying I need to go to the hospital to be with my children. So I knew that they were gone, but I just couldn't believe it.
Your family has been just devastated by this. What would it do to your family if they now came in and said, okay, it's not enough that you've been through this. We're now going to take the father of this family and lock him in a cage over here. What would it do to your family if they took him away?
Coming up.
You know, there's still times that it feels like there's no excuse, and I am extremely angry with him many, many days. We are both living in our own personal hell at this point.
Have you sensed in him that the pain would just be too much and that he would harm himself or take his own life?
Sometimes heaven needs them back again.
The 39-year-old Iraq War veteran says he accidentally left the 1-year-old twins in a hot car. After his 8-hour shift as a social worker at a VA hospital in the Bronx, he found them dead in the back seat.
He pled not guilty to charges of manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide.
How do you feel about the fact that he's been charged?
I don't feel that it's fair.
We're working with the district attorney's office at this point to see the benefit of having these charges dismissed. My client has a life sentence, and he's going to live with this for the rest of his life.
There is not one thing they could do to him that would ever approximate what he's enduring himself.
That's completely true. You know, I remember vividly getting the call about this case. I had never seen anyone so inconsolable.
What would it do to your family if they took him away?
I can't understand how that is justice at all, because we are living our life every day without our children, and that is devastating enough. I can't imagine not having my husband next to me to grieve with throughout this process.
What's been your gamut of emotion about this with him? You've had to say, how could you not think of that? I
Absolutely.
mean, you've had to ask those questions in anger.
Bottom line is that I am supportive and understanding, but I have been so angry. I just couldn't understand how it happened. And, you know, as I'm processing all of this and learning more and more, I realized that this happens more often than I ever knew. But I also know that it was a terrible accident and there was no intention, and he would have never hurt our children on purpose.
How hard has he been on himself?
Extremely, extremely hard.
Worse than you have been frustrated
Absolutely. We are both living in our own personal hell at this point. And I know that he, again, was in a very dark place in the beginning. And I'm just grateful that he has understood that we need him, that his 3 children that are here need him very much, that I need him, that his family and his friends are very supportive, that my family is very supportive of everything that he is going through, and we understand that.
Have you been afraid or sensed in him that the pain would just be too much and that he would harm himself or take his own life?
There was definitely a worry about that initially. He still has that, I think, in mind if he were to go to jail over this.
Take me through the process of forgiving him.
I have seen what a good father that he's always been. When I met him, he had 2 children, and though that's scary to go into an instant family, it also helped me realize what kind of a person he was and how loving, caring, thoughtful, devoted, and happy, and always wanting to do things for the kids going to all of their events and being there for them. That obviously made me want to be with a man like that and know that he could raise more children with me. Forgiveness has come because I know that he is a good man.
Has he asked you for your forgiveness?
No, I don't think those words have actually been spoken.
You know, you've not actually said it to him, and he's not actually asked for it. And even though you've hung on to one another and you're clearly behind him, but he will really turn a corner when he can ask for and receive that forgiveness.
I know he continuously apologizes, and I say I understand and I love you, but maybe those words in particular would be helpful. So we'll work on that.
How was he with the twins? What was his relationship with them?
He was very close with them. I mean, we played with them every night, every day, every morning. We had a big party for their first birthday. We were both very much involved in the making and had almost 100 people there to come celebrate their birthday party, in our backyard. It's just unfortunate that they are forever one.
Tell me what you have beside you on the couch.
Coming up.
The only reason I'm here is because my babies died. So, no, I don't want to be here, honestly. I don't want this to be my story.
Sometimes heaven needs them back again.
Babies, who's gonna make it to the top first? Let's go. No kicking your sister. No side saddling. Oh, and he's down again. Phoenix got it. Oh.
Tell me what you have beside you on the couch.
I have one shoe each of theirs. When I got them dressed in the morning, I put their shoes on. I know they were on them. And that's the last time I saw them with them on. They just had a lot of meaning to me. I've been taking the shoes with me everywhere I go for the last almost 3 months now. I mean, I finally made it to the beach about a month later with some friends. And I took a picture with the shoes in the sand, and I felt that they were there with me.
Can I give you something to consider that you didn't ask for? I think it's really important for children to see you cry and see you recover. And they fastly learn, wow, you know, we can suffer a loss and we can cry and then we're okay.
Right. I know when my 4-year-old does see me cry, he immediately drops everything and comes and gives me a hug. And I'm not sure how he came up with his statements, but every time he sees me cry, he gives me a hug and he says, "You're gonna see me grow up." So it's heartwarming, and it's also very, very heartbreaking.
But think what a gift it is to a child to be able to minister to their mother.
Yeah.
They think, you know, I can lift mom up, I can help her.
You're absolutely right.
Are you still catching yourself sometimes? Maybe you see something silly on TV and you laugh about it, and then you stop and say, how can you laugh? You have 2 dead children.
Yes, all the time. I have a guilt of doing things for pleasure. I mean, even today, we're getting hair and makeup done, and everyone's saying it's nice to be pampered, and I'm saying the only reason I'm here is because my babies died. So, no, I don't want to be here, honestly. I don't want this to be my story, but I'm here because I want to help other people.
I promise you, they would not want their legacy for the time they had in this life to be every time you think of them, it creates pain. You know, what you hope for is that when you do go, that people will celebrate all the days you lived instead of focus on the one day you died.
Coming up.
A child dies in a hot car every week in America, mostly due to what some doctors are calling forgotten baby syndrome.
There are so many people out there that are harsh to us and don't understand this.
This is a terrible tragedy, but Juan didn't intend this. It wasn't even recklessness. You get into a zone where that part of your brain takes over and you go on autopilot.
Thank you for understanding, because it's still really hard to believe that there are so many people out there that are harsh to us and don't understand this.
I don't believe that a jury in the world that understood the history would ever convict a man.
Thank you. My hope and intent at this point is to work with kids in cars. Jeanette Fennell has been amazing and so supportive.
What needs to happen here? What do people need to understand so they, A, don't misjudge this case, and B, we can use this to save lives going forward?
Really, the first thing people need to understand is that it can happen to anyone. And that's the biggest mistake people make, is they say, oh, this would never happen to me.
Well, let me share with you. I've studied the brain and memory for 40 years. And so what I've learned is just how terribly fallible human memory is under so many different circumstances. It's so easy to condemn someone for making a mistake in which it ends in tragedy.
Over 900 children have lost their lives in a hot car. Where is the outrage?
Is there legislation that we can enable?
Right now, today, there is a federal bill. It's called the Hot Cars Act. And if your viewers and your sphere of influence would just write or call their congressperson, we cannot accept little babies dying in vehicles anymore.
Let's take this on and make it happen. And let's drive this home. And I'm so glad that you were willing to share about this. Do you talk to your babies?
Yes, I do. My husband does as well. We wish them good night every night.
Do you believe they hear you?
I want to believe it.
Sensitive and aware to this right now, what do you want to say to them?
That I'm here for them. The reason that I am doing this and talking to you, and the reason that you're here to help other people, is for them. So thank you. And I love them. And I love you guys. Luna and Phoenix, I love you.
There must be borrowed angels here in this life.
Finito.
Into this world and make this world bright. They can't stay forever, 'cause they're heaven sent. And sometimes heaven needs them back again.
They were rightfully named. Luna had bright blue eyes and dark black hair, and Phoenix always had a reddish hint to his hair and his eyes. And they were just such beautiful babies.